Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning in to the show. As always, I got my crew with me, Darnell and Tyler. I'm Trey, and we're coming your way with the 79th edition of the Don't Kill the Messengers podcast. First thing we're about to get into today is the NBA. We just had a big trade happen not that long ago that involves Kyrie Irving going to the Boston Celtics. This trade includes Boston. They're going to get Kyrie Irving, and the Cavaliers are going to get Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and Ante Zizic. I believe that's how you say his name. And Brooklyn's 2018 unprotected first-round pick. What are your thoughts on this, guys?
I think the Cavs actually pulled off they got a pretty solid return for giving up Kyrie. Mm-hmm. They got a comparable score in IT. Got some defensive help in Crowder, and something for the future in getting that draft pick. So I think it was, very good return for them. I kind of feel like Boston gave up a lot to get Kyrie, seeing as, the jury's out if he can actually be the number one on a team. I know when he last was the guy for Cleveland, he was still a young player, only a couple years in. Well, from his rookie year to about his third year before LeBron and Kevin Love came. But, during those seasons, the Cavaliers were a sub-500 team. So, interested to see how this turns out. Kyrie has shown flashes of, being pretty much unstoppable near the rack, pretty similar to IT. Plays a little bit better defense than him, so I guess that's the pickup Boston gets in that. But Boston still has another All-Star on their team to pair with Kyrie, so I guess we see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm happy you mentioned that other All-Star there in Boston and Gordon Hayward, but because I was gonna say, we can say Kyrie was the guy before, but he's getting more help now than he did then. We need to come to his protection there and just call that for what it is. Having Gordon Hayward in itself more than he had in Cleveland those first few years. But I'm right with you. I like the return Cleveland got. And I think the most intriguing piece for me, and that's that 2018 pick, the unprotected Brooklyn pick. Very interesting for two reasons to me. One, that's LeBron's chance to leave Cleveland if he chooses to opt out. So they can use that 2018 pick kind of in two ways. One, they can say, hey, LeBron, we're getting a most likely number one or number two pick. Stay. Here's another great piece we're going to be giving you. Or if LeBron chooses to leave, at least he'll have some protection with whoever that number one pick's going to be. So it's kind of a catch-22, but it's kind of a catch-22 in a positive. Usually the catch-22 has the two negative connotations, but I think this one kind of falls in the positive. But yeah, you're getting similar scores here in Kyrie and Isaiah Thomas, so it's kind of a wash there, like Darnell alluded to, as well as Kyrie plays a little bit better defense, but it's not like Kyrie's a first-team all-defensive player, so or a second team for that fact. So it's not like you're gaining or losing a whole lot trading those two players. And I think we'd all kind of agree there. I think you're getting a more explosive player in Kyrie Irving than Isaiah Thomas, but I think a lot of that just has to do with the size of each guy. So not really a whole lot you can do about that, but I think Jay Crowder provides some protection for LeBron. They can sub in for LeBron with a solid defender, a guy that can hit the outside shot as well. It's not like Jay Crowder is going to be an all-star next year or anything, but just another solid player. They're adding another solid defender. I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a team Cleveland turns into, though. To see if they, ride Isaiah Thomas a little bit more and try to get a bit more offensive, try to run, and maybe mimic what Golden State's attempting to do, or if they try and lock in with Jay Crowder and try and get more defensive, get Isaiah Thomas to play a little more defense, and try and shut teams down. It'll just be interesting to see which direction they choose to take. But either way, I think it was a good trade. I like Cleveland's side a little bit better than Boston's, but I think Boston's in a win now mode, and I think they've showed that with what they've given up for Kyrie, and then what they did dealing Avery Bradley as well. I think they moved him to try and get some more cap space, and they got Gordon Hayward. So I think they're in the win now mode, and I don't blame them. I think Danny Ainge is doing whatever it takes at this point to get the big names, and I mean, credit to him, credit to Boston. They've accumulated the picks, and this is what they're able to do with them.
All right, guys. We all know that Kyrie's a beast, but now he's actually going to be the man. Now it's his team. How do you guys think he's going to fill that role in Boston?
I mean, I don't think he really has to change his style of play much unless he wants to try to become more of a facilitator. But with how Boston works, I don't think he has to, because IT is not much of a pass first point guard either. Yeah. So they're getting a similar player. Some would say a better player overall. Better shooting touch from Kyrie, more range from him, and amazing to say, but a better finisher even than IT, especially if you look at how Thomas is in the fourth quarter, but Kyrie is better around the basket. So I don't think he really has – it's a good fit because he doesn't have to change his game too much, and he's not playing with LeBron anymore. He has Gordon Hayward, who is somebody that will probably be comfortable deferring to Kyrie and allowing him to be that top dog on the team, because, I mean, I guess it was still questionable. Like, he wasn't coming into Boston for it to be his squad anyway, with Thomas. But so I don't think it messes up any chemistry either. So I think it's an improvement for Boston with their draft pick and with getting Hayward. I think they do better, and kind of like Ty said, they're just kind of in that frame of mind that they're trying to win now. They solidified themselves as probably the closest to the Cavs, even by trading with the Cavs. But especially if this is the last year of LeBron being in Cleveland, they still will have Kyrie for one more year then, and I think they supplant and become that de facto team in the East.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people would, may think that Boston is now the team to beat in the East, but I think we need to see somebody actually beat Cleveland before we say that. But before we even make a discussion out of that topic. But, I fall in line with Darnell as well. I think Kyrie Irving is going to be fit for this team. Isaiah Thomas was their go-to guy in the fourth quarter, and now it's, exit stage left for Isaiah Thomas and enter stage right, Kyrie Irving. It's like, I mean, we both alluded to it. You're getting a very similar player, strong on the offensive end, not scared to take the shot. Just a guy who wants to put the ball in the hoop and can get to the rim. So I think Kyrie will do well as the guy. I think he's matured a lot over the years in the NBA. I think his leadership, will need to still improve. I haven't seen a lot of, leadership moments out of Kyrie Irving. And I think that's going to be where he's going to have to really fill the role as the guy the most. Because we don't know what he's going to bring on the floor. What's he going to bring off the floor? What's he going to bring at practice? That team in the frame of mind to push past LeBron James. And ultimately that's going to be him. If he wants to be the guy, he has to do that. But yeah, I just think he'll be fine. I don't think he has to really change the way he plays. Like Darnell said, unless he wants to pass the ball more, but I don't know why he'd want to pass the ball more. But I think Darnell also alluded to, Gordon Hayward being the guy willing to step aside and let Kyrie take over the team. I think that's going to be probably one of the more interesting combinations out there of Hayward and Irving, because I feel like they're two opposite players. Like, I feel like Kyrie will want the ball. He'll want to finish at the rim more than, kick it out to Hayward for a 20, 25 footer. So I think that's what's going to be interesting to me, at least. So, how those two are going to gel, how they're going to click. I'm not going to say it won't work, but I just find it interesting that, Hayward, a guy who is more likely to defer, and Irving, who's more likely to hold on to the ball and take to the hoop, how that's going to gel, how they're going to find chemistry. If, we had this conversation with Golden State, and I think it kind of shut everybody up about, they'll need to adjust, but will either guy take a hit in stats? I think it's just something that you at least have to consider when you're trying to put all these star players together.
All right, guys. Is there anything else to add for this trade?
Well, just kind of think about, I still will put the Cavs as the number one team that will probably get to the finals to play Golden State again, but I can only imagine how Clay and Steph are salivating about the idea of Derrick Rose and IT having to guard them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man,
yeah. Do you? I guess this is another question we at least need to talk about. Yes, Kyrie wanted out of Cleveland, and it was more than obvious. Are you surprised that the Cavs actually traded him? Or are you, maybe not necessarily are you surprised that they traded him, but that it happened now, that it happened with the team it happened with, for the players it happened with, the whole trade, just everything about it. Like, what would you say was most surprising to you about it all? Because it kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah, it caught me off guard too. Just like I kind of pictured him getting traded, man, just with the whole beef that was going on between like him and LeBron and the whole Cavs situation, how they're just debacling right now. But the trade helped them for sure. But just the whole Kyrie going to Boston, I think he'll fit the team well. But I was not expecting the trade between the Cavs and Boston to go down like that. Just because both of these guys are very talented offensively. I just didn't see that happen at all. But, they got it together, and I think they got a piece that could work with LeBron. So,
I mean, I'm not shocked that Cleveland pulled the trigger on this trade, just because, like me and you agree that they probably got the better of the deal because of the return that they got. But I'm shocked that they got the return that they got, because usually when you're sending off a player like that wants to go, you're not going to get a return to this level. I mean,
yeah.
Usually when you're trading a max player, you don't get equal value. And
yeah,
you think Kyrie and IT just that alone, you think that could have just been enough, or?
I would have probably had to throw Crowder in there. I don't know about giving up that first round pick of the Nets. I guess I wonder how much haggling had to go from that. I wonder if Danny Ainge just threw that package on the table and they went with it. So, we heard reports like earlier that these two teams were in discussion, but who knows how long that had been going on. Yeah. But yeah, just cause, I guess I wouldn't go Kyrie for IT straight up just because it's the NBA and that height factor for two players that are so similar. I don't think I could do that. So I would have had to have more if I was Cleveland.
Yeah.
But I would assume IT and Crowder should have been enough there, because you're getting another defensive player that can help your best player.
Yeah.
But, Cleveland got a cherry on top with getting, and that draft pick, which, if there's a chance of them keeping LeBron, I think that would be a nice piece to dangle there. Like, hey, look, I mean, if anything, we may be able to parlay this trade into another couple players that are of higher value that we can put with you to keep this team strong. If not, a potential rookie that you think you might want to play with.
Yeah, and then I guess real fast, I think what was surprising for me was the fact that, Isaiah Thomas has risen as the face of the Celtics, and they just kind of dealt him haphazardly almost. You just don't see, all-star players just being traded like that. I get it. If you're going to get Kyrie Irving, you're probably going to have to trade a point guard as well. So I understand, but it was still a little shocking to me that they got rid of Isaiah Thomas just because of what he turned into for Boston. And then secondly, I agree with you, Darnell. I feel like the return was a lot. And, kind of like you said, I wonder if Danny Ainge was just like, let's give them a little more than they think they need so they go through with it. It was kind of like, we don't want to have to negotiate a lot, so let's just give them a little more than, they think they need just so we can get it through. Like you said, we don't know how long the talks were. We don't know how extensive they were either, but it just kind of seemed like, I think this number one pick will put it over the top and they'll want it. They'll take it in a heartbeat. And it's kind of like they wanted to do that so nobody else took Kyrie Irving. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I felt about it, but, just seemed like quite a bit. But hey, if you want to get the deal done, you're going to have to sweeten the pot. So they did.
Yep. Anything else, guys? All right. Up next, about to get into boxing. I have a pay-per-view coming up this week, this Saturday the 26th. I have Floyd Mayweather versus Conor McGregor. Huge hype for this fight, guys. What do you guys think? Is this the greatest fight of all time?
I think it's the greatest fight of all time if you're into smoke shows and mirrors. Gimmicks.
Yeah, judging by the laughing that you had to start letting out before asking that question, I think we got our answer. This is a sideshow. This is a freak show. This is a circus event. It's a spectacle. A lot of people are going to pay for it, but it's garbage.
Yeah. Just what do you guys just think about the you just kind of mentioned it, a lot of people are going to pay for it, but do you think this fight will meet some of the sale expectations? Do you think this will undersell, or how do you guys feel about this?
I think it'll undersell. Only reason I think it'll undersell is because I think a lot of people want to see it. They just don't know if they want to pay for it. So I think a lot of people are going to somehow either go to viewing parties, because Trey, I know you said you guys have been invited somewhere to watch the fight. So,
yeah.
That's one purchase of the fight and 10 people may benefit off of it. So I think it's just going to be a situation where viewing parties are the way to see the fight. And, I just don't think a ton of people are just jumping to the bit to buy this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be the most, I think it'll be the most purchased pay-per-view fight of all time. I do think there's enough hype like that behind it, but it's also going to be the most illegally streamed fight of all time, just because a lot of people aren't willing to put that much money up on it. So, I mean,
quick question for you there, Darnell. Do you think it's possible that it can be the most, purchased pay-per-view fight and still undersell? I guess here's what I mean by that. Say, Floyd Mayweather just comes out and is like, I expect, $100 billion for this fight. And they only bring in, $50 billion, but it's still the most viewed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what it comes down to. I don't know what the expected buy rate's supposed to be for it, what they're projecting it for it. But I mean, I'm pretty sure like it's going to be a few million buys on this. That's just it's going to happen. But so yeah, I guess that is a possibility. I guess we would just have to know what the expectation is for it.
Yeah.
Now, guys, there's a lot of people been clowning McGregor. I heard about the McGregor challenge and stuff going on. But does he have a chance at all? Like, is this is basically just Mayweather, just easy money, as he says, right?
Yeah, I mean, it should be. I mean, if they fight this fight 100 times, Floyd should win probably 100, but it is a fight. Yeah. And, so if Conor can somehow land something flush and knock him out, he's not going to outbox Floyd. That's just, no. Let's put that out of there. But if he goes in and, goes for a shot, if he sees an opening and can land it and can put Floyd down, yes, he has a shot. So, I mean, it may only be 2%, but, in the words of Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. Yes, he has a shot.
1 in a million.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we don't always come to this conclusion, but if you're stepping in the ring, you have a chance. Just by being there, it may be very slim. It may be of the thinnest margins, but you have a chance. And I think Darnell got it right. He's going to have to knock him out. This fight's not going to go the distance and McGregor will win. That's not even in my realm of possibility. It's going to have to be a knockout or it's going to be an L for McGregor.
Yeah, I can agree, with what you guys saying. I know I told you guys this before. My whole kind of thing about this is, of course, once you get in the ring, everybody has a chance, but, just kind of a little bit worried about this fight because I was telling you guys last week about the whole Pacquiao deal. Boxing is a very, dirty sport, when it just comes to, the judges. So, just with Pacquiao, he did this thing in a ring it was about a month ago or whatever, and, got screwed over. So it's always, not really a good thing to leave it in the judge's hands, but, so you always got to be careful with that. But, just looking at it, this should be Mayweather's fight. This McGregor, how I think he should pull off a win, I think he would have to be well conditioned, which I think is a weakness of his, just looking in some of his, fights in the UFC. I know boxing is going to be a lot of less, strain on the body since he doesn't have to worry about, people grabbing him, trying to wrestle him, choke him out and stuff like that. But he does, just looking at his, UFC career, he has been gassed, pretty easily in some of his fights. So I think just for him to go out there, he would have to go out there, swing a little bit, try to get Mayweather tired, put his body, weight on him because it's going to be bigger probably coming into this fight, and try to just put his body weight on Mayweather when it clinches up and stuff like that. But just with Mayweather's defense, man, that Philly shell is no joke. So he's that defense of Mayweather, it's going to be hard for him to crack it. But if he could somehow get those combos going, they could somehow set up a punch with that left that he can crack Mayweather on the chin. Could be a knockout for him, but it's not really likely, I don't think. So, just have to see. All right, guys. Anything else to add for this awesome fight?
I'll be glad after next week so I can stop hearing about it because it'll be done.
Guess we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. By the way, I will add this. I do think this is going to be McGregor's last time he fights.
McGregor or Mayweather?
McGregor. I don't think, unless he still wants to pursue a boxing career after he makes this much money, I can't really see him doing, going back to the UFC and settling for a little paycheck like that compared to, what he's going to be making in boxing. So I don't think he's going to make that much money, then go back to Dana. Okay, here's $2 million for a fight, and he's probably gonna make like what $80 million just off this fight. I don't think he would do that. So, just my opinion. Could be wrong, but that's just.
It's not like it's a far out there opinion.
Yeah, but I just don't think he's gonna. After making that much money, you don't really see people downgrade like that, but.
Yeah, it's like they'll never touch it again.
Yeah, so like I said, could be wrong, but I think this could be the very last time people see McGregor fight either.
Would you say that it would be the last time win or loss?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just my little thoughts, but could be wrong. But yeah, like I said, unless he somehow looks pretty decent and he wants to continue to train and get boxing to try more and see if he could bring in a good amount of money, I just don't see him making $80 million then going back to the UFC fighting for like $2 million. So, like I said, could be wrong, but we'll see. But yeah, guys, any other thoughts on that?
No.
Up next, this kind of breaks my heart, man, but got to talk about Jon Jones, man. This is, man, my God, like you said, Darnell can't get right. Just tested positive for drugs, so he's just been stripped of the light heavyweight championship, which means
apparently Dana said not officially stripped yet.
Not officially stripped yet. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so at the time of this recording, he is still technically the light heavyweight champion.
Okay, because I was reading Cormier got the belt, but yeah. But also means that I won't be able to see him and Brock get it on, man. That's what I was looking forward to. So, but yeah, Jones messed me up, guys. What are your thoughts on this positive drug test again?
I mean, I want to say I'm surprised, but I'm not. Just, I don't know. It's just something with this dude. I don't know if he just feels he can get away with anything, but always seems to get caught still. Like it defies reason. Some of the things that he does. I mean, he's been arrested for like crimes. He's been caught doing street drugs, and now twice he's been popped for a quote performance enhancing drug. And from TMZ's reporting, who broke this story, like this one was popped for an anabolic steroid. So, and taking a look at him, like he's probably in the best shape we've ever seen him, at least like visually.
Yeah, there was a picture I saw somebody posted. It was of him a couple years ago, like compared to how he is now, man. And he just got completely jacked.
Yeah,
like, it was just ridiculous.
So it's not I mean, I know it's not always, you can't just look at somebody's frame or anything like that to tell if they're on steroids, but I mean, he looks the part, and that's going to be another hard thing for him to get around. I know he seems to have the most forgiving fans ever, but I mean, it's to a point now where like, gotta show this guy he needs to do things the right way if he's going to earn cheering and respect, even with him being, the most gifted fighter possibly I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, man. I was just thinking, you put two and two together, him taking steroids is probably why he had to take those dick pills he was talking about prior to that. So could be, man. But this is tough, man, because Jones is one of my top guys, man. Like I said, Darnell, some of his fans are some of the most forgiving people in the world. But man, enough is enough, dude. Like, I really just looking at this, like, I really can't call him. Like, I thought, like, he's the best fighter, all time in UFC history, man. He can't even be that anymore, dude, because he's just constantly just getting in trouble. I don't care if it's just car accidents, like I said, him doing cocaine or testing positive for drugs. It's like, man, Like how many times this guy just going to continue to screw himself over and over again, man? This is just getting really frustrating because this guy pretty much, is in the peak of his career and we're missing out on him because he's going to get a big, suspension from this and just missing out.
He's already had a 1-year suspension. So this is going to be a multiple year pop most likely.
So you just missing out watching this guy in the ring, man. It's going to be adding up on, just totaling up on him, man. So it's just, like I say, just enough is enough, man. This is just gone completely out of hand.
Do you guys see, and I, not being as versed in it as you guys, I don't know if it's happened before, but would there be a day where Dana White just goes, dude, you're done. Like, you're not fighting ever again. Like, you're done in the UFC. This is it.
If it was,
go ahead.
I was going to say, if it was another fighter that wasn't as talented that he knew wasn't going to make him a lot of money, yes. Dana White has pulled that with people where he knows it's not going to kill the UFC's bottom line. But I think as far as like somebody like Jon Jones goes, he would rather hurt his own bottom line than help somebody else's. Because I think Jon Jones has enough of a name where if he went to Bellator, he's going to sell pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Well,
if
he
went to World
people
Series
will follow him.
Exactly. So that's when it's going to stay with, like, he would keep him on staff, but I mean, Jones is working his own way to not being able to fight again. I mean, I think the third pop, you get a lifetime ban. So.
Okay. I didn't know what the system was there.
Yeah, new rules that they implemented, I want to say like 2 years ago. You can get that 1-year ban off of your first offense. Second one, I forget, but it's multiple years, and maybe I think it can be anywhere from 2 to 5. And then the third one, you could risk lifetime ban.
Lifetime ban for just like all MMA, so that'd be like UFC, and if he went to Bellator, it would just be Oh, okay. Wow.
No, that's just because you won't be able to get sanctioned or you can't get a license to fight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. He's shooting himself in the foot. But just like what Darnell said, man, Jones is one of those guys, if you put him up in the ring, he's going to sell. But, with him just constantly getting in trouble, I'm pretty sure it's crossed Dana's mind, is this guy, like, can I just rely on this guy to just show up to a fight and, just keep the belt, without, drug test or something like that, stripping him of it. Like, it has to cross Dana's mind, but, Dana's a money guy, and if he can get him up into a big fight and get some cash out of him, he's definitely going to go for it. So,
yeah, I'd have a hard time giving him another title shot now. Once I assume they will strip him of the belt officially at some point soon. But yeah, like once he deals with this one, yeah, I would have a very hard time giving him another title shot. Like, he would have to go undefeated for a couple years going clean before I would feel comfortable going, all right, we'll give you a chance. Like, he's going to have to show that he can grow up and learn a lesson.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, guys, just how do you think DC feels right now just hearing this?
He's got to be mad. I mean, Darnell alluded to earlier, Darnell was saying that Cormier, had the quote, "He can't beat me when he's clean." So Darnell hit the nail on the head, bringing up that quote. And Cormier's got to at least feel frustrated. You lose the title fight, comes out the guy wasn't clean. I mean, yeah, you could still argue that, it may be judged no contest now. But everybody's still going to say, yeah, but Jones beat him. It's just going to be to me, it'll just be one of those situations where Cormier just still has that public perception that Jones is still the best fighter in that division, no matter what happened. So I think Cormier is going to be very frustrated, very aggravated. I also, granted, I think he will think of himself the right way, but I think he's going to really come out and try to prove himself better than how everybody already views him. Like, a lot of people know he's most likely the second best fighter in that division, but, I think he's going to want to go out now and prove something more. Whether, and I don't even know what that is, but I think he is going to feel the need to go out and prove something to everybody. And that's just what I think. So probably doesn't mean a whole lot.
I mean, I would assume that, like you said, I would assume he's pretty angry about this, because of all the shots that were thrown back and forth with, like we said, with DC saying basically you can't beat me clean, and Jones coming back, he says I can't beat him clean. I wonder what his excuse will be after this fight. And now that question is back on the table. What would have happened if both of them were clean? I mean, maybe DC still gets knocked out. Maybe so. Maybe Jones is just kryptonite for him and a bad matchup. But maybe he's just been juicing, so, his skills were more heightened to what they should be. This gives, it puts the question back up in DC's mind. I know, like I said, Jones's fans, his most staunch defenders are goddamn annoying, to be pretty clear about it. Like, they just can't hear anything bad about him. Like, his fans are stans, basically. They won't hear anything bad about Jones or admit anything. Yeah. So yeah, there's gonna be that part of the MMA fandom that just says, "Did you see? It was a knockout. Like, he was just that much better than him, and that's just all they're gonna hear about it." But it's like, yeah, it was a knockout, but who knows how long he had been juicing for that fight, and probably tried to cycle off, but it didn't work, and he got caught. So, if the question is just going to be there. I fought you while you were dirty. Like, who knows what happens if you're clean? I mean, up until that shot landed, DC, he was going toe to toe with him, and just like the first fight, like he tired out in the end, but he still was mauling, like, going after him. So who knows if Jones didn't get whatever extra he got from the steroids, maybe DC could have got a different outcome. Maybe that kick isn't as hard. Maybe it's slower. Who knows? Yeah. But now there's just questions will be there.
Do you guys think that the perception of Jones is still the best fighter in that division will hold? Like, do you think people are still going to think that?
Some.
Because like you said, obviously the diehard Jones camp's going to come out and say, well, he hasn't fought, on drugs his whole career. But I mean, I think I think it'll be interesting to see if he gets more of the defense or if he gets more of like the MLB Hall of Fame treatment. Like, if you were in that juicing era, like, you're done. You know what I mean? Like, does he get the Mark McGuire, Rafael Palmeiro, or does he get, some big time defense? Like, I think that'll be interesting to see.
As far as that goes, like, MMA is a sport where they don't. If you've been popped for steroids, you don't go through quite as much hell as you would as a baseball player. I mean, there's plenty of players that are still considered legends of the sport in MMA that have been popped and they haven't lost too much status. Sorry to bring up another one of your boys, Trey, but Vitor Belfort has been long considered one of the dirtiest in the game as far as using steroids. Frank Mir has been popped once or twice. Junior Dos Santos just got popped. I think a couple days before this news broke.
He did, really? Wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, and I mean, there've been others, so it goes away. But just once you get to this level, I do think it can hold you back a little bit to being considered the best at your sport, especially once you've been popped multiple times. And I mean, it does put a cloud over somebody's career because, people can try to say, well, he hasn't been doing this his whole career. MMA really only got pretty strict on this, like using USADA for drug testing and not doing everything in-house within whichever organization or league you're in. Like the stricter drug testing policy is only 4 years old.
Yeah.
So really, we don't know. And Jones started getting caught once it got strict. So honestly, we don't know how long he's been trying to gain a competitive edge.
Yeah. And I guess
just to think of real quick, too, like, we cover UFC, but I still think the UFC still has a long way to go. I still think it's pretty much a relatively new sport that still needs to gain traction and fans and stuff like that. So, still think it needs to just branch out a little bit more, but it's getting there.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to make it clear, not necessarily saying he's going to get shunned and totally cast off here. Like I'm just curious to see, I guess, in the future. Well, I guess like you said, Darno, will he get a title shot again? Stuff like that. Like, is he going to kind of be looked over in this division now? Or is he still going to be the one that they say, I don't care, that he got popped for whatever drug it was. I still think he's the best fighter, in the best division of the UFC. Mm-hmm. That's just what I think is going to be something to look for. Because he'll still always be around, and I still think he'll sell.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else? Thoughts on Jones or anything else on the contact sports like boxing or whatever? Before we move on.
I mean, just a black eye for the UFC with one of their biggest fighters, and of course, it happens a couple nights before they put their other top star on display in a boxing match.
Yeah.
I mean, for Dana, he's probably like, the timing couldn't have been worse for this.
Yeah. Sure. All right, guys. We're about to touch into some NCAA football. Got into some conferences last week. Now we're about to finish them off this week. First, about to get into the Big Ten. Just want to start it off on your guys' squads this year, Michigan and Michigan State. What are your thoughts on them coming into the season?
Who's going first?
I mean, you want the worst squad to go first?
It doesn't matter to me at all.
Well, I'll just knock mine out. I mean, of course, this is definitely a rebuilding year for my team. We're looking to get back to winning record ways, and of course, one would like to get back to winning double-digit games every year, but that's not realistic, especially after a year going with winning 3 games, going 3-9, and with all the issues that went on with the team, and a bad summer with 3 players being booted for a sexual assault case. I think this is just a season of just trying to get the team back together and show some chemistry and try to win some games. I think there's a couple bright spots to look at, but the team is going to be very young. Sophomore quarterback with Brian Lewerke, redshirt sophomore, but nonetheless. So looking to see how he goes there. Young receivers. Probably the top receiver is going to be a freshman in Tristan Jackson. And, O-line will be pretty much brand new spots along there. You have a couple at least mainstays with Brian Allen anchoring the place for him, and the three-headed monsters we have at running back. So hopefully that stabilizes the offense. Defense is going to be another issue. That's where most of the chaos happened last year. They lost games for the team a lot. They couldn't get to the quarterback. In 12 games last year, they only had 11 sacks, which is just awful for a defense, especially what you are used to seeing from Michigan State, a team that can usually get after quarterbacks. That's been one of our fortes. Going to be looking to try to get back to that way. So a lot of pressure on the defensive ends, especially Demetrius Cooper. He's the elder statesman for that D-line, so he's going to have to try to show some things. And young secondary, Josiah Scott, being a sophomore, he'll probably be the lead corner for him. So, a lot of questions, a lot of intrigue, because I do think that they're talented. All the players I mentioned, I do think are very talented, but can they come together, gel, and being young, can they play as close to mistake-free football as they can, because that's what it's going to take, and can they stay healthy, because depth is going to be an issue.
Okay, cool. Trey, I'm sorry, but I got to beat you to this just because Darnell and I share an answer that you don't. Darnell is coach over there on the hot seat.
Not for the season, no.
I agree.
They would have to be as awful, if not worse, than last year. Like if there's improvement shown, he's fine. I think after a season like this one, and being that he's, quite possibly the best coach that the program has ever had, I think he's earned the right to try to fix it. Yeah. Especially since he wasn't. Of course, the fault falls on him, being that he's the leader, he's the coach, but he wasn't like Art Browse turning a blind eye to things that were happening in this program. So
yes. Yeah, sorry, Trey. I had to beat you to that one.
Hey, it's all good, man. You interrupt me again, I'm beating your ass.
Okay.
But yeah, go ahead, man. Touch on Michigan.
Yeah, I think Darnell and I have, one similar concern on our team since youth. Michigan's returning less than 5 starters on both sides of the ball combined.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, they sent. I think they had the most drafted players in the draft.
Yeah, they did. Year. True. Yep.
But at the end of the day, they still have a lot of promising returning players that just weren't starters. I think one of the more notable ones is going to be running back Chris Evans. The guy showed a lot of promise last year. A lot of people started getting on that hype train, and from what I'm hearing, he'll most likely be the starter. But they have, 3 or 4 running backs you could go with. And in college, it's more so running back by committee for a lot of teams, unless you got a guy that's poised to be a stud like a Leonard Fournette or a Dalvin Cook. Nick Chubb, who I may mention a little later when we talk SEC. But yeah, just they'll have a lot of depth at running back. They'll have a lot of depth at wide receiver as well. They recruited very well at wide receiver, most notably getting Donovan Peoples-Jones. I expect him to be the top receiver for this team as a freshman. Getting a lot of positive talk about him, physical build, ability on the field, just a lot of strong promise there. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they're returning a couple players that I think are going to be huge on the D-line, Maurice Hurst and Rashawn Gary. I believe they combined for I had it up a minute ago, either 14.5 or 16.5 sacks they combined for last year. So that'll help get some pressure on quarterbacks, help plug up the middle for the run game. Everywhere else on the defense is going to be super, super young. Guys will have to fill some roles very quick. Defensive coordinator Brown's going to have his hands full, but I think he's up to the challenge. I think Harbaugh's up to the challenge. But I think most notably returning Wilton Speight, I believe he will be the starter. I think it's his job to lose, even though Harbaugh won't show his cards right away. He hasn't yet at Michigan. I don't think he ever has in his career. So we should be strong at quarterback. Again, in my opinion, as long as Wilton Speight gets the starting role. If he does not get the starting role, then there may need to be some adjustment going on there at the quarterback position as well. But just youth's going to be all over the field for Michigan. It'll be interesting to see who rises up. I'm sure Darnell's the same way thinking about Michigan State, just who's going to be some guys that step up early, who are going to be some late bloomers in the season that are nice surprises. But at the end of the day, solid, for both of our school or both of the teams we cheer for, your school, Michigan's not my school, but the team that you cheer for, solid head coaches, solid coaching staff. So it'll be interesting to see how they develop the young team.
So a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
When do you expect a Big Ten championship?
Not this year. This year is, I still think they're too young. I thought last year we stood a very good chance. I know I picked Ohio State even, but last year's, if they would have beat Iowa, they were in the Big Ten championship game. The game against Ohio State would have been, the result wouldn't have mattered. They had to beat Iowa, failed to beat Iowa, and it cost them big. So last year was a really good year. I'm not going to expect it this year. Next year, I'll be disappointed if they're not in the Big Ten championship game. Even though
next year you'll probably have a first-year starter at quarterback.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And the reason I say that is next year I'll expect it to be Brandon Peters. Brandon Peters will have had 2 years with the squad, 2 years learning the offense, and very talented. His game tape looks great from high school. Now I understand there's a big jump between high school and college, but I think fundamentals are there, and I think he's very football savvy, very smart IQ, doesn't force a lot of throws. So I think him as a starter, I think he'll be able to adjust very quick. So next year, I'll be disappointed if Michigan's not in the Big Ten championship game. This year, I'll understand. Next year, I'll be disappointed if they're not.
All right, and question 2, what is with all the questions around Speight? Like, does that give you any pause, since apparently until late it seemed like there was actually a quarterback competition going for the starting quarterback?
Yeah, I think the appearance of a competition is just Harbaugh not giving away his cards. Like, for one, I think that's Harbaugh just being Harbaugh, trying to get the most out of every guy. Not allowing Brandon Peters or John O'Corn to say, well, it's Speight's job, so practice like we're trying to win it. I think it's more psychological for Jim Harbaugh than anything else. But secondly, I know a lot of people who aren't sold on Wilton Speight. And I don't understand. Like, Wilton Speight played some really good football last year. He surprised me. I know he surprised you, Darnell. You said you could see him on an NFL roster, not a starter, but you think he can make a roster. I don't think that's too far off. He's shown great poise in the pocket, smart decision making, things like that. But I think where people doubt him is the fact that, he didn't beat Ohio State. He didn't blow away Iowa. We lost to Florida State, but, I also look at it and say, I saw the stat the other day and I can't remember, the exact stat, but I think Michigan had the largest, average or per game point differential in the country at like just over 30 points for their margin of victory. And it's like Wilton Spade's doing some good stuff if that's your margin of victory is, around 30 points. Granted, you're beating up on Hawaii, you're beating up on some of the smaller schools, but, I tell people Wilton Spade had Michigan in position to win in Columbus with practically a disabled shoulder. I don't know too many quarterbacks in the country, really competing against a top 5 opponent with a bad shoulder. Granted, it wasn't his throwing shoulder, but, it's still big for a quarterback. I think people are just frustrated, or at least Michigan fans are frustrated, not being in a Big Ten championship game yet, not being in the playoff yet, not beating Ohio State. And I think a lot of people are just looking to point the finger wherever they can, and leadership roles are the easiest way to do that. You're going to point the finger at Jim Harbaugh. You're going to point the finger at Wilton Spade. It eventually gets to him. A lot of people, just kind of like everyone pointed the finger at the punter for not beating Michigan State a couple of years ago, off one of the most memorable plays ever in college football. It's wherever you can point the finger, you're going to point it. And I think Wilton Spade is starting to become a focal point there. But I like him. I like him a lot. I hope he's the starter. He'll bring a lot of experience to a young roster. Guys that will need to be brought along. I think he'll be able to do it. So, do I think there's quarterback competition? No, but I think Harbaugh's just trying to keep everybody mentally in it, preparing to the fullest every week. And no, Trayon, Jim Harbaugh's not on the hot seat.
All right. Okay, guys, who are some players to look out for in this conference?
I'll hit this one first, since I went with the more obvious picks last week. I may take some not so obvious ones, at least for the Big Ten. First, I'm actually going to go running back from Northwestern. I believe is Justin Jackson. Guy led the Big Ten in rushing last year. Rushed for just over 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns on just under 300 carries. Not a big name, but big production. A lot of people are going to be talking about Saquon Barkley as the best running back in the Big Ten. It's like he wasn't even the best running back in the Big Ten last year. So Justin Jackson, great name to look for. Surprising player, has a lot of speed, fun to watch. I think people would be surprised to see a running back of that quality when you turn on like Northwestern versus Purdue. A bright light in a lot of not very exciting games. Another name that this will be an obvious one. Saquon Barkley. A lot of people are going to be talking about him as possibly the top running back prospect next year. I won't be shocked if he, is going to be a first, second round pick next year. The guy just is big. He's strong, very mobile, has a lot of ability, solid player. And I think he got showcased very well last year with Penn State winning the Big Ten, going to the Rose Bowl. A lot of prime time, and all that. So Saquon Barkley would be another one. One more obvious one, Rashawn Gary out of Michigan, defensive end. Just really solid player, was the number one recruit in his recruiting class. Just it'll be interesting to see if he can help bring this Michigan defense to another level, and lead the defense to. And I want to choose my words carefully because I don't want to say to be, the best defense in the country, but, I want to see them put pressure on a lot of quarterbacks next year, especially late in games. I felt like that was something they kind of failed to do in a couple key games last year. So I just want to see if he can really push this defensive line, help them really stay in it for the full 60 minutes of the game. So those are three players I think will be very, very fun to look at.
Yeah, so I'll go a little more obvious since I went off the radar a little bit last week, but like to go along with one of the ones you mentioned from Penn State, Saquon Barkley. He's gonna be kind of a early season in the group of 8 to 10 players you want to put in the Heisman discussion. He's going to be there, along with him, his quarterback McSorley. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I feel like he likes to just kind of throw it up there and see what happens. He has one of those types of games, in my opinion, but it worked for him last year. I'm interested to see how that plays out for him this year. Of course, we go to Ohio State. Have to say JT Barrett. This is his last year on campus, and
finally,
and he was up and down last year. So we want to see if he can put together a consistent season this year and maybe get his prospects back up for going to the next level, or maybe winning a Heisman Trophy or something along those lines. Couple other ones. I will go with the Wisconsin Badgers quarterback, Alex Hornibrook. Started as a freshman last year. Also, was a little bit up and down, but Wisconsin, things line up very nicely for them to actually have it, like they should walk to the Big Ten championship and have a chance. And have a chance at going to the playoffs, depending on that defense and the arm of Hornibrook, basically. So I would say look out for him. And then from the alma mater, I gotta say I'm gonna go with the 3-headed monster of running back
that's
to see how that plays out with LJ Scott leading the way with that. Probably the biggest name out of them that most people are going to be looking for. But that running game is going to be dependent on a lot to keep them ahead in games if they can get leads. So all three of their running backs will be getting time, but got to lean towards LJ.
Yeah, I don't think I'm far off in saying this, but LJ Scott shows a lot of Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, for sure. That's the closest comparison.
He just does. Big body, catch, run very well, great between tackles. I think LJ Scott is he's potential to be, one of the best running backs in the country, numbers wise. He has that potential. It's just I don't know that the offensive line will allow for him to reach that potential. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what I think. I mean, it's gonna be he's gonna get the lion's share of the carries, but I mean, you're still gonna get a nice. You're gonna get another nice dose still of Gerald Holmes and Montre London. I think they're gonna be put in there because they're going to rely. I think they're going to go back to what got them there, basically, as far as Michigan State goes, and that's going to be trying to, shorten games by running the ball and trying to keep the defense rested. Because, like I said, they have some talent, but they're young and there's not a lot of depth. So, I think a lot of pressure is going to be put on that running game as a collective, and the O-line will have to learn how to run block if they're not very good at it, because they're going to keep running into a brick wall, basically. I think that's just going to be the game plan.
Yeah, and I said this when Michigan State was, in the playoff. I said it when they had that great stretch of 6 or 7 years or whatever it was. But, I always said Michigan State thrives off of time of possession. Running the football is very key in that. So you're spot on. I think you are completely spot on. And if I can throw in one more name, it's not a player to watch, but it's going to be a coach to watch, and I'm just going to throw out PJ Fleck. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Power 5 conference, big time Division I football. He'll get, the chance to beat or to play some really good programs. He'll get, Wisconsin and Nebraska in his division of the Big Ten. That'll be interesting to see how he stacks up year one. Just how he handles himself in Minnesota, how he handles the program, and maybe Minnesota can make some noise.
All right, guys, let's get into the conference game. And who do you have winning? What do you guys pick?
You want it first?
I've been going back and forth on this one. I have Ohio State versus Wisconsin. I mean, you have to keep wondering how well does Ohio State keep replacing players? 'Cause they lost a lot too. They didn't get depleted as much as Michigan did, but they lost a lot of top-notch players. But I mean, they recruit so well. They're a top 3 recruiting class every year. So with that, but Wisconsin, they keep a lot of their players. They're going to be fresh because they don't have too rough a schedule. They play in the West, where I mean it's just not very tough top to bottom.
Not balanced.
Yeah.
The Big Ten.
Yeah. So I think they will represent the conference on that side versus Ohio State. I guess just I'll lean on coaching and I'll say Ohio State over Wisconsin.
Okay. I got the same. I'll just say that you said Ohio State winning it, right, Darnell?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got Ohio State and Wisconsin as well. Just like my man Irvin, I just think Wisconsin, they got an easy schedule, and I just think Ohio State's going to pull it off. So,
yeah, this makes me wonder, do I want to just pick something different for the sake of being different?
Hey, man, go.
Shoot your shot.
Shoot my shot. Yeah, right. You guys make this no fun sometimes.
Go ahead and pick your school.
No. Honestly, I think I still think Ohio State's the team to be in that East division. I think
you feeling Rutgers time.
Yeah, Rutgers versus Minnesota. But definitely not sold on Penn State. They kind of caught.
Yeah, I was going to ask you guys, because they are,
I'm not sold on. They caught lightning in a bottle against Ohio State. Blocked field goal for a touchdown. I get it. It happened, and they won that game. They caught lightning in a bottle there. McSorley starts hitting bombs in the Big Ten championship game against a good defense. But I just don't see them repeating again.
So you think last year was kind of a fluke, or?
But I don't want to call it a fluke either, because they're a good school, good program. I just don't think. Yeah, I'll say it was a fluke. I think it was a fluke. I mean, I understand. Yeah, I'm bitter. I thought Michigan should have been there. Let's be real. I'm bitter about it. We beat Penn State what seemed like 1,000,000,000-10, and they get to play for the Big Ten championship game. But hey, it is what it is. We lost to Iowa. We deserve to not be there. But we lost to the one team everyone gives a hard time for having a cupcake schedule, year in and year out. But yeah, honestly, Urban Meyer just has too good of a thing going. Michigan has a good thing going, but Urban Meyer's got fool's gold almost. Or no, he doesn't have fool's gold. He just legit has gold. It's year in, year out. JT Barrett's back. They'll find playmakers again. They always do. I'll go Ohio State out of the East, and let's do it. Let's go Wisconsin out of the West, I guess.
Okay, so
we'll make it super boring. Right. Yeah, and I think we're all consensus there on the winner as well.
Yeah, how do you how many games you think Michigan's gonna pull off this year, man?
What do I think?
You think Ohio State's just gonna clearly get it, or you think Michigan's gonna get in some trouble? How are you feeling about Michigan?
The game against Florida is going to be big for Michigan. I think that could easily set. I think that game sets the tone. If they beat Florida, I think they'll be undefeated going into the Penn State game. If they beat Penn State at Penn State, most likely a night game, most likely college game day. If they win that game, I think they're undefeated playing Ohio State. That's bold. I know that is bold because we got to go to Camp Randall, which is where Wisconsin plays. So, I mean, we're looking at neutral field against Florida, and then we're looking at Penn State, at Wisconsin. Thankfully, we're home against Michigan State, home against Ohio State. I think that beating Florida step 1, beating Penn State step 2. I think we can afford a loss to Florida, can't afford a loss to Penn State.
Okay.
I always say it's not how you lose, it's when you lose. Like, Penn State lost to Michigan last year, first Big Ten game of the season. Didn't hurt them too bad.
Now it's time to lose.
Yeah, so, if I'm Michigan, I think you can afford a loss to Florida, even though I don't want to see it. But I don't think you can afford a loss to Penn State. So how many, realistically, I see Michigan at 9 wins, realistically. 9 wins in the regular season with a possible 10th in the bowl game, depending on matchups and all that. But I think if they can beat Florida, beat Penn State, I think they have a very good shot of being undefeated going into that Ohio State game. Okay. But I think they'll have to grow up real fast in order to get there.
All right. Let's not jump around with you about him, man. But Harbaugh's a beast, man. He knows how to get those guys ready. Yeah. So,
but realistically, I think 9-10 wins. Realistically,
that's about what I would agree with there. I got them penciled between 9 and 10 games won. Because my question is, I mean, they lost a lot, and Harbaugh is a good recruiter. But yeah, I mean, when you return that few starters, that's a lot of production to try to make up. And I mean, outside of the football factories that have been established already in Columbus and Tuscaloosa, that's tough to make up from with a coach in his third year now, fourth?
Third.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean,
I completely agree. And I'll even say it's not like they're walking into, playing Western Michigan week 1 here. Like, you're playing another top 15 program. You're playing an SEC school. The silver lining is, I guess, the fact that they had to suspend 6 or 7 players for week 1.
Yeah.
It's still going to be big. It's going to be televised. It's going to be a heavily anticipated game. So I won't be surprised if some bright lights catch up to a few of them.
All right, guys. Any other final statements for the Big Ten?
No, just can't wait for that first game day Saturday.
Technically, it's the second game day Saturday.
Yeah.
First week has the blow-off games.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's the week that's, I mean, just if you just need a fix, you'll watch some of those games. But yeah, real.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Up next, we're about to go to the SEC. Just to start this off, is this still clearly the best conference in college football? Or do you think the Big Ten has something to say about that?
I think the Big Ten has something to say about that. I mean, I'm not going to look at the AP poll or the preseason poll. I'm going to go to last year's final season rankings, and we're looking at Alabama, the only Big Ten team in the top 10, and the Big Ten has 4 teams in the top 10. So, like, I get it. It's a new year now, but I mean, the Big Ten showed up pretty big last year. I think at one point they had 6 teams ranked, 6 or 7 teams actually ranked throughout the season. As much as I love the depth of the SEC, I think they're starting to get very top heavy. We're seeing the same. Well, granted, in the Big Ten, you see the same teams at the top, but I think we're starting to see Alabama really pull a monopoly down there, where they're the cream of the crop and everybody else is a step below, as to where the Big Ten, everybody else is beating each other up, and you're looking at just different teams sharing the top. We're starting to see a big balance in the Big Ten that we haven't seen in a long time. But yeah, I just think that the SEC is getting very top heavy, very predictable. But I think the Big Ten's starting to, wave at the camera and say, hey, notice us a little bit. And I think everyone is starting to take notice. So, I think where your question brings the conversation, the word in your question that brings the conversation is clearly. Is the SEC clearly the best conference? I would say no, they're not clearly the best conference. But I do think that they are still the best conference, but I don't think it's clear.
Okay. Arguable.
Very arguable.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty much along those same lines. I mean, if you force somebody to make an answer, probably most likely their answer will still be the SEC, but I think the ACC and the Big Ten have made strides to kind of say you don't own this conversation. Like, there's other names that can be thrown in there as suggestion, and these first couple weeks of football might give us some answers to that too.
Yeah.
We have Michigan playing Florida. We have Alabama and Florida State playing. If those two SEC teams were to go down, then you really got some questions that are going to be coming up. Like, number one team in the nation loses their first game of the year, albeit to the number two team. But hey, I mean, and that comes off of losing the national title game to another ACC team. And then, last year you had LSU drop first game of the year to Wisconsin. So, there's definitely some argument that can be made now. So, clearly the best conference? No. In most people's minds, are they probably still the best conference? Yes, but a lot more shaky to say probably the best conference than unquestionably the best conference.
Yeah, the only person I think out there that would say yes, it is clear is Paul Finebaum.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will. Yeah, I will say though, I think in the last 10 years, this is the closest it's ever been.
All right, we're now about to get right to Alabama. Last year they were rolling, were doing their thing. A lot of people thought they were going to win a championship, but came short. They're ranked number one on the polls for the preseason. Do you guys think they're the clear-cut winner to win the playoff, or do you think there's some other guys out there that could just as easily win it?
Well, no. I mean, they returned some good pieces, so I could definitely see why they are still number one. But I mean, look no further to the first game of the year. Like, that's a team that could, beat them in the playoffs. I mean, it's game one, so that's not a game that will disqualify either team from making it to the Final Four if they were to lose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if I had to just make a top 25 right now based off of, what teams have left and what teams have lost, I would probably put Alabama one still. But I don't think they're unbeatable and they're a juggernaut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd agree. I think they can be beat. Clemson showed they can be beat. But I think a couple things go into them being number one. One is their solid recruiting. They have that year in and year out. And then second of all, I think their consistency has put them at number one. I mean, we're looking, I believe they're the only team to make the playoff all 4 years. Or 3?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, all 3 years. So they're the only team who've made it to every playoff. They're also, more years than not playing for a national championship in the last 5 or 6 years. So we're just looking at a powerhouse program that's been super consistent, has, I think everybody would agree, he's the best coach in college football, Nick Saban. And I don't know how else you can reward that than by giving them preseason number 1. So I have no problem with them at number 1. I don't think there's much discussion, really, either. Just based off of facts.
Yeah. All right, guys. Anything else to add for that?
No.
Who are some guys to look out for in this conference?
I guess I'll kick in first since Ty did with the Big Ten. Mine will be pretty short and sweet. I'm going to start with the quarterback of the number 1 team, in Jalen Hurts. He was very good for most of the year. But when we got to crunch time, he was shaky at times against Washington in their first game in the playoff, and also at points in time against Clemson. He did lead that last drive to take a lead, but he was playing against Deshaun Watson, who went right back down and scored the game winner. So he did do some things there, but I think the onus is going to be on him to be a little more confident throwing the football this year. I think Alabama as a whole depended on his legs a little too much last year. I don't know if that was Kiffin not having enough confidence in him throwing the ball as a freshman. And of course, with the offensive coordinator change in between 2 games in the playoffs, like that definitely could have also had an effect on rattling him. But I definitely want to see what kind of progression he made from year 1 to year 2 as a starting quarterback, to see if he's made some strides, and especially in the passing game. We know he's going to be dangerous in the open field when he takes off. He showed that last year, so he'll have that in his pocket. But he has weapons, and he's going to have to be able to use them throwing the football. And then my other player that I would want to look at is Willie Geist from LSU. He was a fine stand-in for Leonard Fournette in games that he missed when he had to step in, and I think he probably will step in and be the best all-around back in the SEC this year. And if he plays well enough, he could run his way into the Heisman consideration, in my thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my list will be a little bit bigger, but still pretty obvious in a lot of ways. I agree with Jalen Hurts leading the number 1 team in the country. All eyes are on you at pretty much all times. So just interesting to see how a second-year quarterback handles it. I feel like he handled himself very well year 1. Had some moments where he looked like a year 1 quarterback, but for the most part, he was very poised, very composed, and did a very good job. So I'll give him a lot of credit. Someone I hope can step up for him a little bit better this year than they did last year was Calvin Ridley. Alabama again, but hopefully he can become a bigger playmaker this year for Jalen Hurts. Some reliable hands. Maybe be, the deep ball threat that Hurts needs. Because they didn't have much of the downfield last year. Granted, they had a couple plays to O.J. Howard, but it just seemed like he was due for one, and that was it. And it was in the biggest of moments. So hopefully Calvin Ridley can do a little bit more. My other name, Nick Chubb, Georgia running back. I agree with you, Darnell. I think that the LSU running back has more potential to be the best running back, only because Chubb's still coming off that injury. But I think Chubb's the most explosive running back in the SEC. I think he's the one guy that has the breakaway speed that can really turn it upfield. And I'd like to see him, put that knee injury well behind him, have a killer year. I mean, last year wasn't his best year, but he still rushed for over 1,000 yards. And I'd like to see what he brings for NFL scouts because he passed up on the draft this year. Yeah, so I think he's looking to have a really big year, really impress the scouts and, maybe rival, Saquon Barkley for best running back in the draft. Who knows? But time will tell with that one. And then, if I were to give one more name, it'd be Bo Scarborough. So I've named 3 Alabama guys, but just Bo Scarborough's an animal and a half. Like, he is physically imposing, just a huge running back. But Alabama seemed to have gotten those kind of backs lately. Derrick Henry, we all remember he was in the coin toss and that photo made everybody else look like children standing next to him. Yeah. So, Bo Scarborough, just a very good running back. Hopefully, I would like to see him also relieve Jalen Hurts a little bit. Make Hurts not feel like he has to make a lot of plays. I'd like to see him evolve in the backfield. As it seems like that's kind of the style for running backs in recent years is you have to be able to run and catch. I'd like to see him also give Hurts some help because I do like Hurts as a player. I like Alabama as a program. And like Darnell said, I feel like Hurts felt the need to make a lot of plays he did not have to last year. So I'd like to see the team step up, the playmakers be playmakers. And if Alabama's going to be the number 1 team in the country, those guys will do
that. Okay, now let's get to our conference game picks for the SEC. Who you guys got? I got Georgia versus Bama. Like Bama, I think they're gonna handle their thing in their division. Georgia, I'm a huge fan of Kirby Smart. They had it started off going last year, ran into some games, but I think he's gonna have his defense step it up a little bit more and win that division and play Bama for the conference game. So I got Bama beating Georgia.
Yeah, I'm on the same side there. I got Alabama over Georgia.
Okay.
Ole Miss versus Vandy.
All right.
No, definitely not. I'm going to go with Alabama. I think that's the obvious pick, but I'm going to go Florida out of the East.
Okay.
I think we'll see that game again.
All right, Bama. No Tennessee guys?
No.
Okay.
What was that?
No Tennessee?
Not making that mistake again.
Okay. Man,
they're another team that kind of caught lightning in a bottle too. How many victories did they hold on to? Yeah, or literally run off the field with because they know they stole it. Yeah. They're just when that happens, I'm not likely to pick you. Like I just don't see it. But do we all have Alabama winning? I assume.
Yeah.
Okay.
And get ready to round these off. Finish this up, guys. Just overall, getting to the Eisman. Who are some candidates you think are going to be up there for the Eisman next year?
I think we all could agree Lamar Jackson will most likely be back as a candidate. Whether he actually wins it or not, I think is going to be a different story. But I think we all have to throw him into that. Just super explosive with his arms and his feet, especially if he's out there hurdling players again and having the Heisman highlights, as they like to call them. You have to have those plays that are Heisman worthy, and he's very capable of making a bunch of them. So I think he's one guy that's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just going to run through the short list. Yeah, you got Jackson, you got Sam Darnold, you got Jalen Hunt. Then on the running back side, you got Saquon Barkley, you got the guys. You got possibly Chubb, like Ty mentioned, and probably Bo Scarborough if he has a big enough year.
Yeah, I will say I don't think this is the year we see a wide receiver be a finalist. I just don't. Someone will have to rise up out of the ashes, I think. I don't think there's a name out there that, unless I'm really just missing somebody.
Well, no, and I mean, just the Heisman in itself has become like mainly a quarterback, but sometimes running back award. So it's hard to try to.
Yeah, because if a wide receiver's having a big year, most likely a quarterback is too. So
exactly.
That's true. Yeah.
Any chance? What was your guy's name from Michigan? Ty.
Wilton Spate?
No, he went to the draft.
Jabril.
Jabril. Any chance we see another defensive guy?
Probably not, unless you get a guy that plays both sides of the ball.
Yeah. That's gonna be
a Jabril Peppers or Dory Jackson. Type. To be fair, he'd probably have to even be doing it on special teams. The reason Jabril got there, I mean, to be fair, it's not like the guy had a lot of touchdowns. It's not like he had interceptions. It was just he had a couple plays that were just highlight worthy. And
he had the media hype early, so people were looking for him and wanting him to do something big.
That's true. And as much as I don't want to admit it, if you don't have the highlight tape to back up your numbers, you're not going to get there. You're not going to win. I remember when I think the year RG3 won it, Christian McCaffrey was a finalist, and he had I thought the best numbers out of everybody there, and he didn't win it. So it's just the fact that a lot of things have to be in your favor, and it's not necessarily your stats. You have to be at a, for lack of a better term, a media hyped school. You have to have the highlight reel. You have to get a lot of help from some players around you to make you look good. You just do. And, 9 times out of 10, the best player is going to win the award. But, it doesn't just boil down to what stats do you
have. Okay, guys. Now to really get ready to close it off, let's just end it with our playoff picks and who do we think will end up winning the playoff this year.
Well,
for me, I'll go first. My top 4 will be Alabama, Ohio State, Florida State, and Washington. And I have Alabama.
Well, who? So you would? You're just gonna pick the winner of it all?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you'd pick a finals matchup or not, but that's cool.
Oh, you guys want to do that?
Sure.
Why not?
We're all just guessing anyway.
It'll change about 4 times throughout the season.
All right. I have Bama, Ohio State, FSU, and Washington. Give me Bama and Florida State too.
Ooh, so rematch.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm gonna follow suit with you, keeping the Big 12 out for what would it be, a second year in a row. No. Yeah, it would be a second year in a row, wouldn't it? Big 12 missed out last year? Or was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, Oklahoma was.
Yeah, it was Clemson. Clemson, Washington, Ohio State, and Alabama last year.
Yeah, so Oklahoma did miss out. So, second year in a row. I'm keeping them out. So I guess I'll go Alabama 1, Ohio State 2, Florida State 3, and USC 4. Since I had USC, and then I guess I'll go Alabama, Ohio State with shoot. I really don't want to pick Ohio State to win it all, so let's go Alabama. I can't.
The fan is strong in this one.
It has to be.
Well, I guess I'm I sound like I'm stealing from both of y'all, but I'm going chalk too with the Final Four. I'm going to go Alabama, Florida State, Ohio State, and USC. But I have Bama over Florida State in the matchup too, rematch.
Oh, okay. You thinking rematch too? All right.
That'd be the first rematch we've had since Bama LSU, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That thrilling 6-3 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first game.
Yeah. The second game was what, 17-10?
Well, no, it was a shutout. The second game.
Oh, was it?
Remember,
I couldn't remember that.
LSU couldn't cross midfield.
Yeah, I couldn't remember that.
Yeah.
I remembered the first game.
It was. I liked it. I like defensive games, so I was cool with it. But
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, but I guess the thing I find interesting about that is you just don't often see the rematch.
Yeah.
But I think, and like I was saying earlier, whoever loses that week one matchup of Florida State Alabama, that's an early enough loss to a good enough team that they'll only drop to like 3 or 4. You're not going to fall very far losing either of those teams.
True.
Especially if it's close.
Yeah. Just to sum up our picks, last week, when we made our picks for the Big 12, we all had Oklahoma. Me and Ty, we had Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State, and Darnell had Oklahoma versus Kansas State. For the Pac-12, me and Tyler, we had Washington versus USC. I had Washington.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. I did. We had different winners.
You got already?
My fault.
Tyler had USC winning. I had Washington, and Darnell had Stanford versus USC with USC winning. For the ACC, Tyler and Darnell, they had Virginia Tech versus Florida State. They had Florida State winning. We all had Florida State, but I had the U versus Florida State. And for the Big Ten, what we got today, we all have Ohio State versus Wisconsin. Ohio State winning, and we all got Bama winning, but Tyler has Florida versus Bama, and me and Darnell, we got Georgia versus Bama. And for our playoff picks, Tyler got Bama, OSU, FSU, and USC. Bama beating Ohio State for the championship. Darnell has Bama, Florida State, OSU, and USC. And Bama beating Florida State. And I have Bama, Florida State, OSU, Washington, and Bama beating Florida State. So, any quick changes, guys? Are we all set for that?
I'm just gonna stick with it.
All right.
Here's I guess just some off ball, and it's just quick yes or no. Does a 2-loss team get it? No, because last year we saw our first 2-loss team get it. And this can just be like, obviously we just made our picks, but this can be a off the record. You can take a chance if you want to. So it's going to be, does a 2-loss team get it? Darnell said no.
No, just because all Power 5 conferences have a title game now. I think that cancels that out now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say no as well.
Oh, okay. And I will say no to this, but just because we saw it last year, we now have to ask, does a non-conference champion get it? Or would you say there's even the possibility? Well, I guess we have to say there is the possibility.
I'd say there's a possibility.
Because it's happened, but does it happen?
Yeah.
Highly unlikely. No, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to say no.
I don't think it will, but if it were to happen, I would think Clemson that would be my pick for them to get in. So.
Yeah, it could, and like I said, the only reason I bring those up is we have not seen, or no, I still think a 2-loss team has not gotten in, but a non-conference champion has. So really the only criteria of what it takes for a team to get in is you at least have to have 1 loss or less. Because last year Ohio State got in, not being conference champion, which made it super interesting, kind of threw a curveball in the process. But I think that just adds to the discussion, makes it super interesting of what exactly are the qualifications here. Granted, they had some really good wins, but just thought I'd get quick yes or no's there.
Okay.
Who's everybody's
non-Power 5?
Well, no, just like fifth team as far as the Final Four. Yeah.
First team out, Michigan.
Michigan.
Not even thinking about it.
I'm feeling Clemson, man. I really do. I think it's going to be close between them and Florida State. But I think Florida State's going to end up pulling through. But Clemson, that's going to be my squad. I think it's going to.
I'm going to go Oklahoma State. The conference of no defense.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Not a bad pick.
Power offense. Quarterback that can sling it. I mean, I expect them to score like 40-something points a game and just be in shootouts, but I expect them to be playing, Oklahoma with no more than 2 losses at the end of the season for the Big 12.
Mine is the Badgers.
Ooh.
That's going.
I mean, I just feel like they feast on the Big Ten until the Big Ten championship. And
yeah. I mean, you're also looking at a team, solid defense, always has a good run game, always has a beefy O-line.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even though I do think their schedule shapes up nicely, I do think they're a very good team. So, I mean,
I think they ended the season at 8 or 9 last year.
Yeah.
I think they won their bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look up their schedule. Oh, yeah. Oh, but hey, I may pick Lane Kiffin to pull the upset on him.
Oh, boy.
Don't count him out.
But all right, guys, y'all heard y'all predictions. Any quick changes before I lock them in?
Oh.
Nope, I said it. Put it on the board.
Stone. It's in stone.
All right. It's officially in stone.
Now, Trey, you can't go mid-season change here. It's your opportunity to change.
Yeah.
These are just guesses. I make my money when we do our picks anyway. Yeah. I gotta defend both of my titles.
Yeah,
I need to do a lot better than last year.
We started. Yeah, we were rough for the NFL though, but we started to pick it up during the. Once it start rolling a little bit more. So.
That means we'll be covering the NFL real soon as well.
Yeah. But all right, guys. Any final statements?
Nope.
I am happy I'll have something more to watch than baseball.
Yeah.
Just can't wait, man. Florida State and Bama and Florida and Michigan, man. Those going to be some good games to really start the season off. Even though it starts this week, but, yeah.
Yeah, going to be a lot of beer and food going down that Saturday.
Yeah.
All right, guys. As always, I appreciate y'all tuning into the show. You can check us out on Twitter at DKM_cast. You can also check out check out our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud. Just hit us up in that search engine. We'll catch y'all on the next episode. Peace.